and welcome to season 2 of Healthy and Active in the Couve. We are back at it again. I am Nick Medlock, and I am a personal trainer certified through NASA. I'm also a certified nutrition coach. And here with me, as always, the miracle man, the training coach for runners, the physical therapist, my friend Dr. Trent Corey. We're going to talk to you today about plantar fasciitis, what it is, maybe how to deal with it, some places, or not some places, some things that you can do to get yourself out of some of that pain. And maybe even discuss some of the popular things that claim to help that may be only superficial. So, first, what is plantar fasciitis? So, the plantar fascia is that strip under the bottom of the foot on the arch. And the fascia, of course, we talk about this a lot. Some people say fascia. I like to say fascia just because I was taught that way.
Yeah, I think I'm a Midwestern guy. I kind of sing the nasally voice. So I think that's, fascia. So yeah,
But it's
whatever it is, right. It is that stuff on the bottom of your foot, right? You got
Well,
it.
most people I hear say fascia. So, but
Yeah,
I was talking to a lot of Thomas Myers when I would study it, and he says it's fascia. So,
right. Yeah.
either way, but it's like the bottom of your foot, and itis means inflammation. But I like what we talked about last time with tendonitis, and some of the research that I did to prepare for this also describes it as fasciopathy or fasciosis.
Yes.
And so, we're not necessarily always dealing with inflammation. I've read research that sometimes it was even necrotic tissue that from a biopsy. So there's
Yep.
all things that can indicate pain, and I want to discuss what that is. So, but the what is it? I'm just going to read off of here. Plantar fascia is this thick band of connective tissue running from the heel or the calcaneus bone to the base of the toes, and it supports the arch of the foot and absorbs shock during walking. So a lot of things that can cause pain there for that plantar fasciitis that we can just say that is fasciitis. Excessive running, jumping, walking on hard surfaces. And I would add from this description, too much too soon. So you can do all of those and not get it, but you can do all of those way too fast and then get like an inflammatory response or an
Yep.
overuse.
Yep. Absolutely.
Poor biomechanics, excessive pronation or supination of your ankle and foot. That your natural foot structure could be a problem. Flat feet, high arches, limited ankle dorsiflexion due to tight calves.
That's a big one.
Yeah,
Mhm.
weak or imbalanced foot muscles, or even just tissue dysfunction. At the ankle, a lot of things could be imbalanced muscle wise. And then that also creates weaknesses in certain areas, something too tight here, something too loose here, weaknesses in the glutes, the core, the posterior chain. So basically, I would say everything we've ever talked about ever.
Ever. Yeah. It all connects.
So I'm going to let you run with that. Give me kind of your take as a personal or as a physical therapist, and I
Yeah.
can talk about what I do as a personal trainer.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, this is a very common thing. I see this all the time. I've worked on these. I see these week in, week out. Every week, I probably see somebody with this issue that we've had. And key part is like kind of creating a framework of how to make sure we modify activity in a certain way, and then to address whatever imbalances we see. So a big thing that you mentioned is for a lot of people, and that it's not just everybody, but typically we'll have a deficiency in dorsiflexion range of motion. And that can be due to the muscle tightness of the gastroc, which is the bigger calf muscle, or the soleus, which is the shorter calf muscle that kind of starts mid shin on the back to your Achilles tendon. Those muscles can be chronically tight, and almost every process that I have with people with the plantar fascia issues, I'm having them working on the stretching program and making sure that they're doing that pretty regularly. And then ankle dorsiflexion. One test I'll show people is the knee to wall test. I'll try to just do this in my, here we go, this kind of mode. I'll try to set this up. You let me know, Nick. Okay, so we got here. I'm trying to do a test where someone is, can you see my foot?
I can see your foot now. Yeah,
Okay, so let me actually do it this way. That way I'm further out. How about now?
perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
So if I'm my toe to the wall, I want to back it up a little bit. I want to make sure I can keep, maybe I'm about 3 or 4 inches from the wall. And then what I'm trying to do is keep that heel down, and you can do shoes on or shoes off, maybe ideally shoes off. And then I'm trying to see if I keep my heel on the ground while I can touch the wall. some people, boy, they can't even get here, right? Or even their toes against the wall. They can't even get to the wall.
Yeah.
So simple tests to do, and that's what I recommend folks to do that quick test at home and see if those ankles are tight. You might actually feel that tightness in the calf itself, but a lot of times it's a capsular restriction of that actual ankle joint.
Hmm.
And actually, what we need to do is help that joint move. And so, simple exercises simple movements that we can teach in therapy, but also you can try these on your own and get them moving. But that's a big one that I see. It's not everything. Some people are actually hypermobile and they have way too much mobility. But usually, when I see somebody with that issue, and we talked about this pain, you said the calcaneus. I'm
Yeah.
doing a little show and tell here. Here we go. I'm gonna do. So I'll get my foot, but stick my foot in your face here. So
Yeah.
like in the bottom of your foot, and no holes in the socks. That's good. So then bottom of the heel. A lot of times it's like right on that point there.
Yeah.
Most people, not all, but like most people, it's like right on that calcaneal tubercle, and all those layers. There's four different layers of muscle, and tight in fascia that's between all those layers that tie into that area. And that plantar tendon basically gets a lot of loading. And then we said, as that is, that it's continuous with the calf. It comes all the way up the calf. And so what we're trying to do is affect that whole line of tension. And so that's a big thing that I look at is the connectivity of all those muscles that are tense. And if we can kind of work on that, that really helps it out. Another thing I'd like to talk about, and you kind of alluded to, is like how it's all connected to everything.
Right.
And you mentioned Thomas Myers.
Yep.
So I'll bring you over to the diagram again here. So it's a little show. Look, guys, we're just moving around today.
Yeah.
This is good times. So we got this here. This is the superficial backline of Thomas Myers, and it's a great book called Anatomy Trains. But hopefully you can kind of see this. But basically, we're looking at the plantar fascia here, and then we're looking at how that's continuous with the heel. Like the tissue goes right over the heel and into the gastroc. And so we're working on that. But also, you got to consider more global considerations of when I have people work on their calf, I'm also looking at hamstring, looking at back, but also symmetry of the whole motion. But this connective tissue up in here, I've had people roll in their hamstrings, glutes, and back and make a dramatic change in their plantar fascia pain as well because we're taking load off of the whole structure of that sling that's in the posterior part of our leg. So we can kind of work on that part to decrease any tension that may be building and causing that pinch point to happen. And then also put considerations with anything that's loading that abnormally. So if people are heavy on a heel strike, or like we talked about many times, is like we talked about in our first episodes, a barefoot. So like trying to be, if you're too barefoot, sometimes that's just kind of pressure on a hardwood floor that can aggravate if you haven't doing much of that. But also the type of shoe that you're wearing may be causing things to not be compressed and not making the foot work in a functional manner that we need to. So there
Yeah.
are a lot of considerations, but I try to like start with the calf and the ankle mobility, looking at that posterior chain and those kind of things kind of get me started with seeing how things resolve. And
Yeah.
so those are kind of things that I consider when I'm examining somebody with this very common thing that we see.
Yeah. Well, show and tell. Here's my
Oh,
anatomy.
good. Yeah.
So yeah, love it. Highly recommend it. Maybe we can get Thomas Myers on our podcast sometime.
Oh man, wouldn't that be a dream? Let's go for
Yeah.
it. Like we're gonna shoot for high things in this
I,
because I want to bring the best things to the Couve, right? We
I,
want to make sure we give best things. Here's mine. Here you go. Look at this. So we love you, Thomas Myers. You have some amazing information. It's really it actually reads like a really thorough textbook. I thought it was just going to
yeah.
be some superficial thing. No, it's very well researched. It shows how everything's connected.
Yeah.
If you're into anatomy, I love the Trail Guide to the Body, which is another great guide that I use for my anatomy. But this kind of shows this interconnectivity and that
Yeah.
how the lines pull across the body and those different ways. So
Yeah.
it's important to understand the integrated whole because I have background as an engineer and
Hmm.
that's what I've done. I kind of think about free body diagrams, how this pulls at this and how it all connects. And that's kind of what I think has been valuable in that background of that training to make me understand that, okay, someone's got a foot pain. Yeah, we can work on, like you mentioned, things that may not be helpful. Hey, rolling your foot with the ball could be helpful, but you're sometimes you just try these things first, right? And just see
Yeah.
if they help. And they might, but also you got to consider if these things have been acting up for like weeks and weeks and you're just
Yeah.
not seeing a shift. a lot of times we need a little more professional guidance and like kind of just an outside perspective to kind of understand like, oh, this is what I've been doing all along. I've been just putting too many miles in, or I haven't been really
Yeah.
stretching these areas that he's mentioning that I need to do way more, right? So
Mhm.
we've talked about trying to do healthy things and healing, or hurting things and healing things. And a lot of times our
Right.
hurting things are overwhelming, and we might be doing just a tiny bit of stretching. So we're putting pebbles on the scale.
Right.
We need to do more to kind of create a shift that your body's actually going to be able to recover and re-energize itself and heal that area a little more than just a stretch here and there and you're like, hey, it didn't work. Well, a lot of
Yeah.
times it's about doing the right amount and making sure that we're doing it in a therapeutic way. So that's kind of what we try to guide that process.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
For me, as a personal trainer, what I've seen is a lot of that same approach for you, but I don't do it as a therapeutic kind of way. I'll do it from I want to get you out of pain first because I don't want to move in pain. And so a lot of times I'll use like my Naboso ball, which is a really good ball. It kind of like you've got these micro spikes that work with the connective
Mhm.
tissues and really helps it release and relax the fascia at first.
Mhm.
And then sometimes that relieves pain. But like I see a lot of people saying this is a great way to get out of the plantar fasciitis, but it's like, maybe for 5 minutes.
Right.
It's not a cure, so it's a band-aid. So what I do is I like to get rid of the pain, and then I start to strengthen. And I work a lot with like toe yoga, mobilizing the big toe up and
Yep.
down, and then pushing the other toes down. And I'll have a band, and I'll push forward with the little toes, and
Mhm.
uh, also scrunches with the towels, as well as extension with the towels, with the feet and everything.
Yep.
And then, like you were saying, doing some more mobility, dorsiflexion, ranges of motion, so that you can load, the different muscles other than the plantar or fascia, so that you're not, because a lot of it's just overuse. The poor plantar fascia is being asked to do too much. And
Right.
when we do core strength and we do glute strength, hamstring, and then for me, a lot of peroneal stretching, and I even use like the lacrosse balls on the anterior tibialis and the peroneal muscles, as well as the gastrocs and everything, because more often than not, those are just so ridiculously tight. And sometimes, just like that standard type of stretching, over time, of course, it will work. But like the immediate thing, it's just like solid rocks for some people. So, a lot of different avenues for what I can do as a physical or as a personal trainer is just like teaching self myofascial release, and then strengthening in a balanced way. And it's always full body for me because the big toe connects to the tongue with connective tissues. So you're literally connected from nose to toes, is what I say,
Yep.
anteriorly, posteriorly. So the more we can get the full gait in alignment and moving properly, then I think a lot of that stuff ends up resolving, even if it's over time. Because sometimes I have to try to move quick because people are like, I just want to get surgery. I'm like, that's probably not the best.
Yikes. No, no, please
Yeah,
don't.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely. But you have to be you got to be willing to go through a process that you have somebody who's guiding you through that process. It really helps you gain perspective, and that there will be ups and downs with that process, but gradually as you build up those strength and you're doing it in a safe way, the body does adapt very well. And then, you're using any healing modalities and amplifiers to help the body move better. So I'll use my red light here, the Kinyon device, I turn this thing on. I'll put this on. It kind of enhances cellular healing. And so we'll have folks do that. Obviously, I have the soft wave device over there, where we basically create shock waves that are therapeutic into the tissue, creates better blood flow, and helps the body recover because, like I said, things get chronically tight. They also have degradation of the actual tissues, and they are very weak in blood flow, and it
yeah,
really just has a hard time recovering. So putting in something like this, very helpful to get the healing process stimulated enough so you can, first of all, get the pain decreased. Then you can start to tolerate some more of these gripping movements. And even if it's sore, it's good, but we want to make sure we can kind of amplify the ability for your body to adapt when you put those stresses through the body, which helps it adapt and get better. And so those are kind of healing amplifiers we use, and we just got to consider the whole picture, as you said. But
Yeah.
getting to the point, we got to make sure, especially in PT, people are coming in for me, they want to see some shifts happen sooner than later. Now, don't we all? I mean,
Yeah.
I'd rather you feel better sooner too. So the main thing is, can I get you within a couple visits feeling better because we're doing the things that amplify how your body needs to heal?
Yeah.
And oftentimes that may need an initial period of rest, right? Giving yourself that time. Sometimes you're just beating the crap out of it. We just need some time off our feet.
Yeah.
And we may not be able to do that completely, but even a small decrease in that for the short term, right? Doesn't mean
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
taking it away from you forever. It just means for the short term, we need to make sure we're being able to give that tissue time to recover. And sometimes that does mean, and people don't love me for it, but they do
Mhm.
later. Sometimes that means we'll put you in a night splint, which is
Yeah.
just a splint to kind of keep your toes back or a foot back into a position. And that helps you kind of take that load off the plantar fascia, actually stretches that tissue and a long, low level load over time. And it says night splint. A lot of people, I'll even just have them do it for half an hour while watching TV. They don't have
Yeah.
to wear it all night.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's just unbearable.
Yeah.
But I find that's helpful, and we've noticed people with pain in the morning. Most people, it's the hallmark thing. They think I'm like a fortune teller, and they tell me that foot pain on the bottom. I say, "Hey, does it possibly hurt when you get up first step in the morning?" They're like,
Yeah.
wow, how'd you know?" Like, well, I've seen a few of these. And so, but reason being is like when you're sleeping, your foot's kind of pointing down. So all
Yeah.
those muscles in the calf and the foot
Yeah.
pointing down, that tissue's just getting tight. And then when you stand and load it again, it's
Yeah.
causing that pull at that tendon. And oftentimes that's creating another little micro trauma at that area. And so you constantly just kind of go through the same thing
Yeah.
over and over and over again. So sometimes I need to just rest them for a bit
Yep.
and then let that recover and then put them in the night splint, and then we can start engaging and moving those
Yeah.
tissues sooner by taking more time initially.
Yeah.
It's
One, you just reminded me of one of my favorite guys to watch. He's a physical therapist and personal trainer. Um, uh, he talks about like how we tuck our sheets in at the baseboard,
yeah,
and so it kind of sticks our feet like this. And he
yeah,
says loosen the sheets so that you can relax up this way, and you can actually have that dorsiflexion for your feet, so you're not plantar flexed all the time. So
yeah. Yeah, it
um,
makes sense, right? It's pinning them down,
yeah,
right? So, and then if we were in that position for all night, if you're sleeping for 7, 8 hours, that's a position here, and then your body has to overcome that. And when we try to do a stretch, what do people tell you for a stretch? They say, "Oh,
yeah,
stretch for 30 seconds to a minute." It's like, well, how's a 30-second to 1 minute stretch going to create these changes that we want to adapt that tissue to a better thing? That's why that splint sometimes can be
yeah.
a real game changer for folks. I try not to do it for people if necessary, but I definitely find it to be helpful in certain cases for sure. So,
Well, one of the things I'm always curious about, especially being a nutrition coach, are the inside out ways to help us manage like plantar fasciitis or anything. Because, like I've heard, even sciatic symptoms can be from a mineral deficiency or a vitamin deficiency, especially like magnesium and vitamin D. But so I looked up supplements that could be correlated for helping us heal plantar fasciitis. And some of the things that came up were like collagen type 1 mixed with vitamin C for tendon and ligament repair, magnesium, both like as a supplement internally, but also topical, so it helps with the tissue pliability. Vitamin D3 and K2, I'm big on that lately. I love that, especially for bone and tendon integrity, and it helps send it to the places where it needs to
yep,
go and not,
get outside too, guys.
yep, outside for sure.
Yep,
And zinc, copper, and magnesium together for collagen synthesis, and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, not to say that you have to take supplements, but you can find food, and then, like you said, outside for vitamin D and things like that. You can find all this in, a healthy diet. So,
yep,
yep. So you don't have to take supplements. You don't have to be expensive with it. If you can't find collagen as a supplement or don't want to do that, you can have bone broth, all these different things that
yep,
have
yep.
collagen.
Right. Just eating a good healthy diet, but also like all those things are going to just push everything into the maximally helping phase with minimal harm, right? Those are natural things. We want to improve your whole body's ecosystem. And these are just no brainers. And so sometimes it's like, oh, right, I've been kind of junky with my diet lately. I've been eating
Yeah,
cookies every night or whatever. Like there's certain
yeah,
things I do that. I mean, every once in a while, it's like, okay, I'm gonna grab something. But sometimes when you're hurt, it's like, okay, well, we need to maybe dial down, like figure out, dial in a little bit what we're doing with the diet a little bit more. Because inflammation a lot of times is kind of stoked with all the sugars and processed and all that
that's
stuff. So
exactly what I was just going to say.
yep. So can we do those things first, eliminate those things that are irritating, possibly, like you said, from within, or irritants in terms of movements and things that are causing these things to propagate? Then can we kind of turn the tide a little bit, and then we get some momentum with the positive direction that we want to get to.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I love that. And again, I think we touched on the shoes thing, but I like this idea of we're not stuck where we are. And you know how much I love barefoot shoes, but there have been times where I've had plantar fasciitis and I've got to go with a little bit of a cushion.
Yes.
But then again, that's for a period of time to rest, and so maybe get a little help, with the spring and everything. But I'm not going to stay there. I have to rebuild and then go back into the more barefoot when the plantar fascia kind of minimizes or goes away. And so I like the test at the initial part to find the dysfunctions, and then do the rehabilitation, retest, see where you're at. So because I know a lot of people are like, oh, I've got bone spurs, I've got plantar fasciitis, I've got to have these shoes all the time. And that
Right.
may not necessarily be the case.
Right. Yeah, very true. And you got to be kind of a gradual process. But one thing is, when it was interesting what you said about burnt bone spurs. It's interesting. I've seen this with folks where they had a bone spur that was really nasty, but
Hmm.
and they had it all along and they had no pain. And
Right.
let's say then they got an ankle fracture, or well, let's say they twisted their ankle, went and get an X-ray, MRI, or yeah, at the ER, they're getting an X-ray, and lo and behold, there's this big nasty stalactite or whatever on the bottom of their foot, and they didn't have any pain. So it doesn't always mean. It's really interesting how these pathologies that we may see on an X-ray would be like, oh, obviously you must have pain, and that's not necessarily true, which is actually very encouraging
Yeah.
that we can actually have this resilience and the body can have these things happening, and we can still be very, very, very functional. So sometimes we get scared by an image and it tells us what to do, and it's oftentimes not something we have to be overly alarmed. We can be using that as another data point for making our good decisions, but we
Mhm.
don't have to be like, oh, well, I have this, therefore I need to get it. Like you mentioned in person before, saying I need to have surgery. Well, wait a sec, hold the horses a little bit. So that's something to
Yeah.
be aware of. But yeah, there's so many considerations. It's just about making sure you're adapting, especially with the certain footwear,
Yeah.
that you do give yourself that cushion at first, so you're giving that ability for the tissue to actually recover. So that's when those things just keep going, because you don't let that process fully recover. And so it's a big thing. Then you can get back to those things that you like to do. If you like the barefoot or those kind of things, I totally endorse those types of things. I
Yeah.
even brought the correct toes, or these are called wild toes. These
Yeah.
are the spacers, right? These
Love
kind of
them.
things
Yeah.
where something to space out your toes to get more splay, because that creates a better
Yeah.
overall a functional bottom of the foot, so you're not kind of pinned in and causing things to roll in. So things
Exactly.
like this I love. This takes some adaptation too.
Yeah.
Being our feet for the rest of our lives, so we want to make sure
Yeah.
it's a long-term approach, and
Yeah.
definitely part of it.
Well, I can tell you that some of the prevention, but even also changing, you're not stuck even in your senior years. I've got a lot of people that I work with that are seniors. And in my yoga classes, I teach both chair yoga and standard yoga. And we always start with foot yoga, toe yoga first. And many of them have come back and reported to me how that's changed the health of their foot, and then changed their, like, somebody constantly tells me this has been life altering.
Yeah.
And for some people, it has helped with bunions, and it's helped with high arches, and it's just so not just plantar fasciitis as a these things helpful that they're helpful for, but just overall foot health, which is
Yes.
overall body health, makes a huge difference. So walking barefoot is really good for us all the time.
Yeah.
But yoga, flexibility, and all that kind of stuff, just to be able to grip with your toes and to move barefoot, is so helpful for the human body.
Yeah, for sure. You got to wake it up. You got to move
Yeah.
it, right? And a lot of times we've been locked into shoes, which are basically
Hmm.
cast, and they just don't let that foot to be very dynamic to the ground. So the more we can kind of integrate that, so that's a perfect thing you said, like even just sitting in the chair, just wiggling your toes and just getting the feeling and just making that connection from your brain and getting things to just wake up in there.
Yeah,
And you're creating blood flow, you're creating muscle activation, you're getting feeling of where your body is over your feet. That kind of thing really helps us connect more to what those things are. And a lot of times if we're in nothing like this, we're just gonna feel the cushion in the ground, and it's been
yeah,
something where we're just adapted to that and we can't feel it. It's like, typing with oven mitts on. It's really
yeah,
tough for us to get that feeling. We can, but it's harder, right?
yeah.
So just waking that up and really makes a shift. And I'm glad you're making shifts with people. And that's really amazing. It's really good that we do those kind of things. So yeah.
Well, it's time I've got to wrap it up, but thank you so much, Trent. And is there anything that you need to promote coming up for what you're doing?
So yeah, I'm gonna get back in the summer this Sunday. I'm doing chi walking, chi running class. So I'll probably be doing more of these, but I teach something a very mindful approach to walking and running. Walkers and runners and of all abilities are welcome. We teach a very mindful approach to movement based in Tai Chi principles. So really simple and functional, but it's been life changing for some folks just to go over some really basic principles that are actually you're rooted in science and how the body moves and mechanically how we can be more efficient. So I love teaching it. It becomes a very helpful thing for people to move better. So be on the lookout for that. If the Sunday, July 13th, we're having this, but we'll be more in the future as well. So
Okay,
yeah.
awesome. And then for me, I do the yoga that I mentioned earlier every Friday. Standard yoga in group class is at 9 o'clock, and then my special chair yoga is at 11. And I am going to talk to you afterwards, but I got some fun things coming up in the form of a health expo, and then I'll have some more announcements for that later. So stay tuned. But I'm Nick, and this was Trent, and this was season 2 opening for Healthy and Active in the Couve. Thank you all so much for being here.
All right. Thanks, Nick. It was great. Thanks.